tell you. Oh, baby, let me tell you how to do it now.
Hola, and welcome to the More Substance Podcast. I'm your host, name not important, and this is the program where we bring you some of the most interesting people on earth. Some you may know, some may be strangers. A few might be famous, and others infamous. Nevertheless, what a great time to be listening and opportunity to learn something new. I was driving the other day, and I saw this lady with her hand out the window. She had a cigarette in it, of course. That's when you know someone's to the point of trying to break an addiction, when they don't want their car to smell like cigarettes, or really their house, clothes, or hair, but they just can't break it. And addictions can be very hard to break. When you've been doing something for so long, and you have that craving and that urge for it. And all addictions aren't bad. Normally when we think of addictions, what we think of? Drugs and alcohol. But some addictions can be good. An addiction is really just an abnormally strong craving for something. So you really could be addicted to doing good, to serving, to blessing others. You can be addicted to taking care of your family. A lot of people are addicted to music, movies, social media, comedy shows. I mean, I know I like being entertained. Who doesn't? Some people are addicted to video games, reality shows. Some of y'all can't live without your tea. Just gotta have your tea. And I ain't talking Lipton or Red Diamond. There was a point in my life where it was certain things that I was partaking in, places going, stuff I was listening to or seeing. And I just was like, this stuff isn't benefiting me. So I'm gonna stop. Because I was just thinking like, if it's not helping me, then it's hurting me. If I'm spending a lot of my time doing something and it's not helping me fulfill my purpose or get where I need to be or accomplish things I want to accomplish, then it's hurting me. And I just had to stop. Some people are addicted to work. Some people, like I said, addicted to alcohol, certain foods. Some people just cannot stop certain foods. Even if it's literally killing them, they just like, I'm going to die of something, so I'm going to enjoy this. Some people are kleptomaniacs. You got famous ones like Lindsay Lohan, Winona Ryder, Britney Spears, Jennifer Capriati. All these people famous with money, but stealing. Like they just, the urge, I guess, or excitement of stealing for them, and they were addicted to it. They could get stuff for free off the strength of who they are, but they would rather steal it. Some people are addicted to sex. You have nymphomaniacs, a satiricist. One of the well-known satirists was Tiger Woods. When he had his whole domestic dispute thing, we'll call it that, domestic dispute, and it was public on TV, car ran into a tree, he ended up admitting himself to sex therapy. And I'm going to keep it more than real with you. If you admit yourself to sex therapy, it was more than one person that you were engaging with outside of your spouse. No one goes to therapy for one thing alone. That'd be like going to AA because you had one wild inebriated weekend. It doesn't work like that. Some people are addicted to gambling. I'm going to go out on a limb, and it's really not going out on a limb. Matter of fact, I'll tell you like the Hall of Famer Charles Barkley. I may be wrong, but I doubt it. Everyone born, if they live long enough, is or was addicted to something in their lifetime. Just giving them certain things too much time and attention. When it's all said and done, I know a lot of people look back and be like, wow, I spent how much time doing or pursuing that? What was I thinking? Too much time playing games and not on my purpose. Too much time trying to look apart instead of being set apart. Hello, somebody. I love it when down south Baptist pastors say that. But yeah, definitely take a self-evaluation if you never have or haven't in a long time. And see if it's some things you may need to stop. With that being said, let's start today's show. Well, I want to thank everybody again for tuning in to today's special episode. We got Cartlon Tatum in the building today. He's a tax consultant who helps individuals who owe back taxes or have years of unfiled returns. We know we got tax season coming up and a lot of people need help, so we're going to get into all that and a bunch of other stuff. But we'll just start with a little overview of him as well. Before becoming self-employed, Cartlon worked for 15 years as a general manager and human resources manager. After he completed his MBA, he decided to pursue a PhD in business and become a professor so he can pass on the wisdom he acquired through his work experience. How are you doing, Carlton?
I'm doing great, man. I'm happy to be here, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. I know you. I know you had a lot of stuff that you can share and help the people, so I had to get you on the show. Appreciate you for taking the time out. I know you're a busy man.
Yeah, I think it's all our responsibilities to pay it forward, and anything that we've learned, through our work experience and life experiences, is definitely worth sharing with the public.
Definitely. So let's start back from the beginning. Give them a little background. You went to the University of Houston, right?
Yes, I went to the University of Houston, and while pursuing my bachelor's degree in finance, I worked at one of the largest consumers of largest retailers in consumer electronics. And it was really there where I got my knack for business.
Okay.
Uh, while in school, learning about business practices and finance, I actually had the opportunity to get the real world application and grow with the company that was at the time the best of the best.
Right. So you was in school and you was getting your bachelor's in finance, but then also you was able to get that experience with that big company, so you could have the experience side to it and kind of see how it related, right?
Absolutely. Too many people get out of school and all they have is some book knowledge. I didn't want to be one of those people, so I wanted to have the practical application as well as the knowledge.
Got you. So in your years of working there, when you got out of school, you just kind of stayed with the company, got promoted. Where'd you go from there?
Well, it's interesting. Everyone has, especially as kids coming out of high school,
Uh-huh.
you have these dreams and these ideas of what the perfect job would be for yourself. And coming out of school, I graduated, and that would have been the perfect time to pursue it. But what I found is going into the field that I thought was going to be best for me, I
Uh-huh.
would have been going in at entry level, which financially would have put me way behind where I was already at
Okay.
with the company that I was at. And so it was a decision I had to make. Do I stay true to my, you say, lifelong dream, although you're only 20 years old at the time, but do I
Right.
do I stay true to what I think is my lifetime dream, or do I stay true to what I think would be the best for me and my family financially? And that's what I chose to do.
Okay. And then from there, you stayed with that company for quite a long time, right?
Yeah, just under 10 years. I was
Okay,
3 months
okay.
short
Like a
of making the
decade.
10-year mark. Uh-huh. To put it clearly, it was essentially my entire 20s were spent with that company.
Got you. So then, well, how'd you get to your next step? Like, how was all that worked out?
Well, you get to a point, and especially when you're dealing with retail and consumer electronics, where especially as you get older and you get a family,
Uh,
working on the weekends is not desirable.
right, and
So,
pretty much every Black Friday and all that stuff.
oh yeah, any between pretty much November 1st and about the middle of January, you're working nonstop, 6 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week, and it
Uh,
just wasn't going to be something that I would be able to sustain starting a family.
right.
And so I got out and I made a transition into a company that still had a retail atmosphere, although I was off on the weekends. And
Okay.
it was a company that had a healthcare company that has more members than any healthcare club in the world.
Okay.
And so I spent, essentially about another 5 years there.
Okay. So was it a hard decision, like money wise? Did you leave the first one before you got the second one, or how'd you kind of transition into it? You already had that one at the health place before you left the other one.
I did already have it, but when you think about, making decisions and making decisions based on financing, I call that getting into the rat race. And
Okay.
as a young man, again out of college, I decided to stay with that company based on money and finances. But since then, I would say since in about the last 5 years, now none of my decisions are made purely on financial uh, aspects of it. You get to a point in life where things are more important,
Right.
and I can definitely remember when I was with that first company, missing family members' weddings, missing
Man.
parties.
Yeah.
And you look back at it, and that company doesn't care. You
Right.
know, Outside of the people that work in your particular building, they don't know that you're missing all of these events.
Right.
And so, now it's at the point where I just want to do what's best for my family and just being able to be around.
Okay. So let's talk the health care side. You also how'd you like? start honing your skills from the retail side to get into the health and helping people with their health and things of that nature?
Well, it was a simple transition for me, mainly because, and I hate using the word passion because I feel it's like it's overused.
Uh-huh.
But I really truly believe in educating people
Right.
on the healthcare side of it. Right now, there's a fundamental gap in the way that, let's say, something like nutrition is taught in schools.
Okay.
And I think the reason that our nation in particular falls into the trap that it falls into, it's because we're misled about a lot of the things that come with, health and nutrition and what we're putting into our bodies. So working for a company that promoted health and fitness, it was extremely fun to me. And so, although at the time my education and my knowledge about it was very minimal,
Right.
it didn't take me long to gain it, because it was something that I felt like I needed, because I have the ability to delineate and explain these things to people outside of a textbook in a way that they can understand it.
Right, and that's true, and that's one thing people definitely get to invest in their finances. But you got to invest in your body because you only get one of them. You're not getting another body where you can get another job, another checking account, and all that. So it is very important. And then you see when someone's health is affected, it affects more than them. It affects the whole family as well. So that's definitely a good thing. So let's talk about food dependence and like with the
Okay.
stuff you learned. Tell us a little something about that and how it comes about.
Well, I think it all goes back into how we're taught in schools about food, and how when I was in school, there was a pyramid.
You're right, right.
That's yeah, and although I can't remember exactly how the pyramids, looked, because it's probably changed 5 or 6 times
You're
since then,
right.
but essentially that was all that we learned about nutrition. Is these are the things that we wanted to eat, and I truly believe that those things were put in those textbooks because those were the things with the biggest blocks were the things that the nation could supply. They were
Right.
in abundance.
Yeah.
They were available. They were available to everybody. So let's tell them these are the most important things. They'll go out and get them because they can afford those things. And it all it did is generation after generation we became dependent on certain things. So right now I think about things like sugar and
Uh-huh.
fat.
Right.
Most people don't realize the day to day things that they ingest, how much sugar is in it.
Right.
And, the average person should only be taking in, between 25 and 35 grams of sugar a day. And so when I talk to people and I start talking about things like sugar, they say, well, I don't drink soda.
Uh-huh.
All I drink is like sweet tea, and I'll drink juice and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And the first thing I do is I say, okay, well, grab that bottle of juice
Yeah.
that
Look
you
at
that
that
you
label.
that you drink 2 or 3 times a day,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll see that even though it's fruit juice, it can be 100% fruit juice, but that fruit has natural sugar in it as well. They're looking at 45 to sometimes 60 grams of sugar in that one bottle, and they're telling me they drink 2 or 3 of those a day.
Oh yeah,
And
it adds
so,
up.
yeah, it adds up, and then at some point, your body's going to crave it.
Mm.
And not many people are drinking primarily water like
Right.
throughout the day. 95% of their liquids being water, and that alone will help to cut out all of that excess fat that we're accumulating. Because at the end of the day, it's calories in versus calories out.
Right.
And if you have a sedentary job where you're sitting in front of a computer, or you work from home and you're not moving around much, but yet you're taking in 2,500 calories, which may be the recommended for the average American. But if the average American is working at a job where they're mobile, or maybe in a factory, they're burning off those 2,500 calories where you're taking them in. You're sitting there, and it's creating that problem. Uh, and you talk about food dependency. All it is once your body craves it, it's going to ask for it, and whether you realize it or not,
Uh-huh.
you can tell yourself, I'm not going to drink this today, and then you'll find yourself inadvertently eating a Snickers bar because you cut out that fruit juice, but your body still wants that sugar. So you're finding different ways to still get it in because your body's dependent on it.
Right, right. So how do we break free from that? Like I know it's gonna take a lot of discipline. What would you suggest some things you can do? Because most of us we depending on, like you said, the stuff we drink, some of the stuff we eat. We don't. A lot of people don't even read the labels or understand them. How it kind of breaks down in servings too, because it might be like, yeah, this is 10 grams, but that's one serving and it's 4 servings in the thing. So what would be some
Man,
suggestions?
yeah, that's definitely a good point that you make. reading the labels. Knowledge is power.
Right.
So just reading the labels in and of itself will make you aware of what you're putting in your body. And even if you're not as disciplined as the next person, just knowing will help you scale back a little bit. And we're all victim of it. And I'll tell you something that happened to me last night. My wife and daughter had gone to sleep, and my daughter had some juices, little juices that were in the refrigerator, and I indulged. And as soon as I finished drinking it, I was like, I wonder how much sugar is in this. And I looked, 30 grams of sugar. And I drank that at 10:30 at night, right before I'm going to bed. And that's just something that we have to get away from. But the the fastest way to get your body from being dependent on it is going to be a detox.
Okay.
So there's a number, and I'm not an expert at which one's the best one, but there's a number of detoxes that you can do that are natural. I go to either Target or Kroger's or any grocery store. And if you go to the tea section, they'll have a lot of herbal teas, and some of them will be detox teas.
Okay.
If you happen to be part of a gym or a health club that has a sauna or steam room, going in there and getting all those toxins out of your body, that'll help. One way that you can do it at home, if you don't have access to the steam room or the sauna, is taking a bath in water as hot as you can get it.
Okay.
You want to put in 1 cup of Epsom salt. But you also want to put in half a cup of baking soda.
Okay.
Now the reason why you're putting that baking soda is the water is going to be so hot that it's going to open up your pores. That Epsom salt is going to help to draw all the toxins out of your body. But if you just sat in that water, the toxins are going to just leak back into your body. So that baking soda helps to keep the toxins from re-entering your body.
Okay. Okay. Good.
But doing that, it'll take the need for a lot of those cravings away.
Yeah.
And once the cravings are gone, it's just up to you to realize, I don't need that Whataburger. I don't need that McDonald's. I don't need that Pizza Hut, because your body will start to not crave it.
Right.
But then you'll miss it. You're like,
right.
I used to love this.
Yeah.
Let me try it again. And again, I'm victim of it. And every time I bite into it, it's like, man, this isn't as good as I remember, because
It sure don't be.
You remember it from when you were dependent on it.
Right.
And it was like a release when you got it. But now, since you're not dependent on it, it's just really just muscle memory and just getting your mind out of the mind frame of, I think I should eat this.
Right. When you're not dependent, them and the same endorphins ain't released, it ain't giving you that same type of higher feeling. So you be like, oh wait, this ain't what I thought it used to be.
Exactly.
Yeah. So let's talk about you was like ingesting stuff, but as we're younger or kids, can they or should they ingest more sugar? Because like in their stuff, it is a lot. Or should we be watching what we're giving our kids too?
I think it's more important to watch what the children are eating and drinking, because they're still in a phase where not only are their bodies growing, but their mind is growing.
Right.
And they have so many things that they need to learn and absorb. And it's hard to do so when your body is fighting to stay healthy. And more than ever right now, you have so many children that are pre-diabetic and at risk for diabetes. And when you think about type 2 diabetes, that's all on the person, on what they've been eating, lack of diet and exercise.
Right.
If it's type 1 diabetes, that's
you can't
genetic,
do nothing about
hereditary.
that.
You can't do anything about it.
Right.
But just an example, there's a kid on this little basketball team that I coach, and his dad came up to me after the first practice, and he was like, "Hey, my son doesn't want to be here. That's why he's acting like that. But I'm making him come because the doctor said he's pre-diabetic, and all he wants to do is sit at home and play these video games." And I think what happens is, when you introduce them to all these electronics and video games at an early age, now they're sitting at the house and they're craving those little Debbie snacks, and they just want to eat cheese and pizza and things like that.
Right.
And I think it's lowering their mind's ability to grasp basic concepts. And all these children with ADD, and of course the diagnosis didn't start to not too many years ago. But we always talk about, hey, when we were kids, nobody had ADD.
Right.
And I think it was partly because we weren't taking in as much fat and sugar as the kids are now. And it's not just the fact that there wasn't a diagnosis for it.
Okay. Well, let's fast forward to now, and you doing all these taxes, helping people getting their finances and financial freedom and stuff together. How'd you transition into the tax world? Was this something you kind of always did at your other jobs, like when tax season came?
Yeah, I've for the past maybe 7, 8 years now.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing taxes, and it really stemmed from a time where I had a year where through some personal life changes, withdrew my 401k,
Okay.
went exempt on my federal taxes for a little while, and I got to a point where at the end of the year,
Uh-huh.
I owed close to $10,000 in taxes.
Man, and did you know? I mean, they'll tell you it's gonna be a penalty, but did you realize like how much you was actually gonna owe from getting that 401k and stuff early?
No, I had no clue. The
Wow.
situation I was in, I probably would have done it anyway, but no, I wasn't educated on what the penalties would be. And I remember being at I was at Dave and Buster's with a couple friends, and a buddy of mine, he noticed that I was looking down. He said, "Hey, what's going on, Carlton?" I said, "Well, I'm really, I'm really having a hard time right now, man. I owe close to $10,000 in taxes, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how I'm going to get out of this hole." And he said, "Oh well, I'm a tax professional. Let me take a look at it for you." And the arrogance that I had, man, I have a master's degree in
And
finance and
finance, yeah,
accounting,
yeah,
and I've been doing my own taxes
yeah.
for
How you gonna tell
since I
me?
was 18. Yeah, how you gonna tell me?
Yeah.
And so he was like, "Look, man, no, I'm not trying to say I know anything more than you know,
Uh-huh.
but there's a possibility that I can help you out." So I put my trust in his hands, and he took a look at it, and he was able to actually get me back about $300.
Okay.
And so you talk about almost a $10,000 swing in what I was gonna owe
Right.
versus and so the next thing I said, man, I need to learn what you know. Yeah, I've
Right.
learned the things that they teach in the textbook from my tax classes and accounting classes, but let me get into a business where somebody's been doing it for a number of years. They've seen everything and they've learned from their experiences. And since then, even though I've held full-time jobs, I
Uh-huh.
felt again paying it forward. It's my responsibility to reach out and show people like this money that you're leaving on the table, the government wants. They
Right.
want you.
Oh
They want
yeah.
you to do it yourself online. They want you to go to TurboTax, Jackson Hewitt, or H&R Block.
Right. Because you don't know all the ins and outs and the things to look for. Whereas on those sites, they're just gonna ask you a couple of questions
Right.
and you just answer yes or no. But it's way more than that, and the things and rules change constantly, right?
They change constantly, and more than anything, when you think about the state that we're in now,
Hmm.
and almost everyone has multiple streams of income.
Right.
So they might have a W-2 job that they go to, but you'll have people that's doing photography,
Hmm.
people that are doing makeup, hair, eyelashes, all these different streams of income. They're home-based business, and when I talk to people and I ask them,
Ah.
do you have a home-based or do you have a home-based business? They say no. Next thing
Right.
I ask, do you have a side hustle? Because quote unquote side hustle. That's the
Right. That's what we
tagline,
relate
right?
to. Right. That's when the light bulb goes off. I was like, oh yeah, I got some side hustles.
Yeah, and so when I ask them, and I always make very strong eye contact when I ask, "Do you have a side hustle?" Because
Yeah.
they don't know how to answer it. They're thinking that I'm looking for them to say yeah because I want to use that income, and that's going to hurt them.
Right.
So they look at me and they're like, "What do you want me to say?" And all I want is the truth because I'm pretty sure that most people, especially when I'm looking at their W-2,
Uh-huh.
that there's more income here to support your lifestyle. But
Right.
once we can identify that there is a side hustle, depending on what it is, usually you can use that as a home based business, and there's a lot of deductions that come with that. For example, right now I'm in the tax office right now, so I
Uh-huh.
lease office space, I have electricity, I have internet, all
Right.
these things that are taken away from the revenue that's generated by the tax business. But if I didn't have this office and I was operating out of my home,
Uh-huh.
I still would be using for my business the internet. I still would be using my phone. I still would be buying business cards. So
Right.
a lot of those expenses that people freely use when they have office space, they're afraid to use when it's a home based business. When the government recognizes that the first 2 3 years you try something out,
Hmm.
you're not going to just rush out and go pay for office space,
Right.
but you're able to write off some of those things as a home-based business, and that's really where we're able to help people.
Got you. Get those write offs. So is that your main focus? Just kind of helping those who owe back taxes and or haven't filed in years? Because if you don't file, like you hear about people going to jail all the time. How does that come about? You got to get audited, or if someone is audited, should they come see you, or how does that work?
Well, first thing I want to point out is that an audit isn't always a negative thing.
Okay.
The IRS is expected to randomly audit 5% of all tax returns.
Okay.
Now, when you think about the number of Americans that live in this country, 5%, it's not likely that you're going to be chosen.
Right.
Given the fact that the IRS is short on labor, uh,
Mm-hmm.
it generally works out to about 3% of all Americans that get audited. And most of the times, all that audit is verification of the things that you put in there.
Okay.
But when you have years of unfiled taxes and you work a W-2 job, your employer is communicating with the government that they paid you,
Mm-hmm.
and how much taxes that got paid out.
Right.
And what will happen, and again, they're backed up, they're understaffed, but eventually what happens is, it comes across somebody's desk that this person hasn't filed in 5, 6, 7 years, and they'll contact you to file. And if you don't, the next thing they're going to say is, all right, we're going to file these for you. And when they file them for you, they're not looking for any deductions.
Right, nothing. Yeah.
They're going to put the very basics in there.
Right.
And if you owe them, they're going to penalize you for every year that they should have collected that money. Because the way they looked at it, hey, if you would have paid me this money 6 years ago that you owe me from that year, that would have gained interest by now. So you're going to pay me all that money that I lost.
The interest and everything, man. And then after that, what do they do? They just kind of set up for you to make payments. Can it get to garnishments? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, the best thing to do is keep an open communication with them to set up a payment plan. Otherwise, depending on how much you owe, if it's, I don't know the exact number, but typically if it's under $10,000, they'll just keep your returns for the next couple of years. If you're filing returns and you're not expected to get a refund, then that's when they typically go into, your wage garnishment. They can go into your bank account, levies, liens, all of these different things. And it sounds scary, but the fact of the matter is you need help.
Right.
You need someone to take a look at it. Most people will give free quotes. So if you feel like, oh, I know what I'm doing, I want to do it myself, go ahead and do it. Get to the point right before you hit submit.
And let someone look over it.
Yeah, not even that. You can see what your refund's looking like. Then you can just go to some tax office, give them all your information, just see what they come up with.
Right, see if it's higher, lower, or something you missed.
Right.
Okay. So also, we're going to get into this too. I see you teach apologetics to young Christians who are struggling with their faith. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'll go into that, but just when we were just talking about finances, and I kind of want to segue into how the Christian faith and the Bible could help people with their finances.
Okay.
Obviously getting on the right track with your taxes and things like that is going to be a starting place. But most people don't realize that the Bible has a roadmap of how we should live, not just morally and ethically, but also financially. Okay. And there's a couple verses out there that I want to make sure that everybody knows. The first one is going to be Proverbs 22, verse 7.
Okay.
And it says, "The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is the slave to the lender."
Right.
Our society right now has no problem financing or charging for anything.
Okay. If
I want a pair of shoes and I don't get paid for 2 more weeks and I want those shoes, I'm just going to go put it on a credit card. And that's how we operate.
Yeah.
And to me, charging something or financing something is our way of giving ourselves what God hasn't blessed us with yet.
Got you. Trying to circumvent and get it faster than we should get it.
Yes, and then you put yourself in a hole. And think about how powerful this is. The borrower is the slave of the lender. And most people see that and they're like, "Oh, I'm not a slave."
Yeah.
Well, I want them to try something. I want them, if they have a mortgage, to just not pay it, and then tell their mortgage company, "You're not my slave master. I don't have to pay you," and see how long they hold that house. Right. And so, I'm about to go into apologetics, but I just want to.
Yeah, you good. No, I like it because we need financial freedom.
Yeah,
especially if you're a Christian, we really need to be freed up so we can sow more into the kingdom.
Man, that's exactly right. Next verse I want to go to is Philippians chapter 4, verses 19 and 20, where it says, "And my God will supply every need of yours according to his riches and glory in Christ Jesus. Right. To our God and Father be glory forever and ever. Amen." And when you think about that, I just said financing, borrowing money is our way of giving ourselves what God hasn't given us yet. When in Philippians it says God will supply every need of yours.
Right.
And so we just really have to be patient and create a plan on, number one, today should be the day we stop financing. We stop borrowing money.
Okay.
Some of the problems have already happened. we borrowed money for this, we're financing this. That's already done. But
Can't do nothing about that.
you can't do nothing about that. But if you think from today on, no more debt. Don't incur any more debt and start to pay off the debts that you have. And it's going to be difficult. It's going to take years. It's not a, hey, this is a
Overnight.
one year plan.
Right.
It may be a 10-year plan, 10-year, 15-year plan, depending on, how much debt that you have.
Right.
But if you can get out of debt and you don't owe anyone, now all of your checks are yours.
Man.
They're going into a bank account. Even when you want a vehicle, you'll have the money in there to buy it because, right now some people are paying $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 a month worth of debt. You eliminate that money's going into a bank account.
Right.
And so, I brought those verses up because, the main thing is the word, it has a blueprint of how we're supposed to operate. And most people don't realize that, bankruptcy laws have changed here in the past 10, 15 years, but everybody knew beforehand after 7 years that debt goes away.
Right.
But that's biblical. In the Bible, it says that 7 years was the cap on how long you should borrow money. And if somebody owes you after 7 years, you need to forgive them of that.
Right.
But all of the principles that founded this great country of ours were based off of the Bible. And so I transitioned from there, which is finance. And you can always find the answers in the Bible, whether it has to do with finance or not. But when we go into apologetics.
Right. Let me ask you something real quick on the finance part. I know we shouldn't get in debt, but what about someone young and coming up and they need a car or you're trying to get a house? Most people don't have the money to just buy the house outright. So what do we do in instances of that where we want to, not just things like food, vacations, clothes and stuff like that, but actually like a house or a car that some people might, which it isn't, a car isn't a need, but it's a luxury, definitely. But what would you do if you say someone needs a car? Because even if you don't get a car, you're still paying for the bus or Uber or Lyft or a cab. So what would you say, like, the best way to go about that?
Yeah, and a house is different, and I'll talk about that here in a second. But when you think about a car, most people, they want to drive nice. They want to ride in luxury. And so the issue, I think, is the quality of car that we get in reference to our income.
Okay.
So for me, I should be able to pay. And again, these are steps that people have to take. I'm not there at complete financial freedom right now, but I'm getting there.
Right.
So this year, I should be able to pay off my vehicle. What I'm going to do is continue the amount that I was paying for that car note, put it in an account. So when it's time for a new car, I'll be able to buy it. But some people aren't there now. But what they should do, instead of financing a $15,000 to $40,000 vehicle, if you just need a car, you can get a cash car. You can save up, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, go buy you a vehicle to get you from A to B. And again, the money that you would be paying for a car note, which you're paying a lot of interest on those car notes,
definitely
put that into an account. And when that cash car gets to the point where you don't want to drive it anymore, you should have enough in an account where you can just go buy a car. And you have more leverage at the dealerships when you have cash as well.
Okay.
Like you can talk them down when they know you can go anywhere. When they think you're having to finance it, they're like, oh, well, you're dependent on me, so you got to do what I say. I've already run your credit. You don't want to run your credit 6 or 7 times. I've already got you. But you go in there and say, I got $20,000, I want to buy a car. I got, I can just pay cash for it. Then they know you can go anywhere. And then that's when you can get that $25,000 car down to 20, or you can get that $20,000 car down to 15. It just depends. But it's not easy. And if you have to finance it, get a less expensive vehicle with a lower term, maybe a 3-year term. Try to pay extra and get out of it, and then just put that money aside to the point where you can just buy it. And when it comes to getting a home, again, the average person, me included, is not going to have, depending on where you live, $150 to $400,000 or $500,000 to just go drop on a home, and not. But what you want to do is you want to alleviate all of your other debt before you go into that mortgage.
Okay.
If you can get rid of that car note, if you can get rid of all those credit card bills, any loans that you have, that way when you go into that mortgage, you can make double payments, triple payments, and get to a point where you can get out of that. You can pay that loan off in about 7-8 years. The thing about it, on a 30-year mortgage, if you go the full life of that mortgage, you pay for the house 3 times.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So how is it when people are going to refinance? Are they getting an extension or are they making it shorter?
Mm,
Because I know a lot of times I see people be like, yeah, we refinanced our home, and then it's kind of like a tax return. They got all this extra money, then they spend it and stuff. So like, how does that work out?
well, you think about you finance a house
Hmm.
for 30 years. Let's say you paid on it for 10.
Okay.
So you owe 20 years on the current terms.
Right.
Well, you think about the principal that you've paid down. Typically, when people are refinancing, if they're smart and they paid 10 years and there's 20 left,
Hmm.
they'd refinance it on a 15-year,
Ah.
which will lower the amount of interest that they'll pay on it. But what most people do, you're talking about them getting extra money, cashing
Hmm.
in,
Yep.
extra. They refinance that home, which they only owe 20 years on, which they owe less than what they bought it for.
Uh,
They finance that amount back over 30
30
years.
again. Uh
Yeah, and so they get some of that money in their pocket because there's equity in the home,
huh.
and their payments may go down because they owed less when they financed it. But at the end of the day, you're still locked in for another 30 years, and unless you bought that house at 15, now you're looking at not having your house paid off to your 65, 70,
Yeah.
which is not where you want to be. You see the average age of people that are in the workforce going up every year because
Yeah, because
people are
they have
having to
to.
work until their 80s because
Hmm.
they don't own anything.
Man, yeah, that's tough. I hate when I see real older people working a job and you can tell they need to, not just they want to get out the house, help sew back, volunteer, but it really kind of hurts my heart. And I'd be like, man, we got to make better decisions, like for
Yeah,
real.
yeah, definitely. And you think about our grandparents and their parents, and they own their home so early, and of
Man,
course
yes.
the cost of the houses were a lot less, but their pay was a lot less. But the fact of the matter is, they could not incur this other debt that we have. They couldn't get these credit cards. They couldn't get these personal loans. They didn't have $150 cell phone bill. So
Right.
when they financed the house back then, all of their money was going towards that house. They get
Right.
it, man. They got it paid for, and again, they're not financing anything after that.
Okay. Yep. Yep. Let's so now that we covered the finance aspect, let's go into the courses you've been teaching.
Okay, I'm a strong believer in, when we talked about financial freedom
Uh,
in the Bible and in Christ as my Lord and Savior. But right now, the fact that we live in the information age,
right.
I think we're losing a lot of kids. And what happens is they grow up in these households that are firm believers, and they give all this information, and then they get to sometimes high school, but for the most part, they get to college,
Right.
and and people are saying things that contradict what they learn and what they believe,
Right.
and the first thing they do is they just abandon it. And so right now, Lifeway Research, which is one of the world's largest producers of Christian products and services,
Mm-hmm.
they estimate that about 66% leave the church between ages 18 and 22.
Okay.
So think about how that number. That's 2/3 of individuals that grew up in a Christian household or have a Christian faith
Uh,
get to college and they just completely abandon it.
yeah.
And when we talk about apologetics, that's just you know people's way of defending the faith
Right.
and being able to explain it. And when someone tries to say something contradictory to what they believe, they're able to come back and explain it. And what happens is, especially with science,
Uh-huh.
they get to college and they'll say
Start
something.
taking those courses.
Yeah, they start taking those courses. Other friends will say something like, "Man, how can you believe that? There's no way Noah could have gotten all those animals on the ark."
Right.
And that's such a famous way to discredit the Christian faith. But if they're not able to explain that, then
Right.
then they just at some point they say, you know what, you're right. And so what I do is I try to explain to them that uh, science is not unbiased.
Right.
Many people think of science as an unbiased people searching for the truth,
Uh-huh.
and that's a misunderstood way of thinking. Because if someone does not believe in God, they don't believe in the Bible, that is their bias. And then from then on, the things that they teach are going to be based on something that they can't prove or disprove.
Right. They're gonna have a totally different vantage point.
Hmm. And so, you know, for instance, the global flood.
Hmm.
If someone does not believe in the Bible, they don't believe in God, they don't believe the global flood existed, then uh, that's why there's so many discrepancies on how long the earth has been here.
Right.
Oh, it's been here 100 million years, 200, 300, 400 million years. Well, if you're not going to recognize that the entire earth was flooded and contained, just had water everywhere,
Right.
that's going to change the composition of all these things that we're testing. But
Hmm.
if you don't believe in the flood, then you think, okay, when I test this rock versus this rock, that there's no, the discrepancy doesn't exist. And even right now, experts will tell you that even in the Grand Canyon, there's like a 3 to 5 million year gap in between layers of rocks that are right on top of each other. But
Right.
that gap doesn't exist because there was not 3 to 5 million years between it. The global flood and all of the fossils and things that were entrapped in the water just changed the composition of the different layers.
Right. Right. Basically, it was a reboot, so you can't really pinpoint when it started. Most of the stuff they're testing is pre post flood. Then.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so for me, most preachers, and I'm in the South, and,
Uh-huh.
and most Southern preachers, they think that it's sufficient to preach concerning the death of Christ for our sins and the need for repentance
Uh-huh.
and receiving Christ as our Savior as enough. So as a young person, you're 12, 13 years old, and I'm
Mhm.
telling you, Jesus died for our sins,
Mhm.
and because of that, you should be a follower of Christ. And maybe when you're in a household that believes the same thing, and all of your friends at church believe the same thing, that's
Right.
enough.
Right. And you're not hearing nothing different or contradicting, or you don't have to defend it.
Exactly. But if that's all you're taught, and then you get somewhere where someone's really attacking you,
Right.
then you're gonna cave and you're gonna give in. So what I believe in, and especially teaching with these young people,
Mhm.
is explaining these different things, sometimes on a scientific level,
Right.
but there's a number of authors out there that they really break it down. One of them is Ken Ham, and he has a number of books
Mhm.
uh, from ages like 2 and 3 year old kids all the way up to adults that just from a scientific method explains all these things and how Christianity makes more sense than all of these other scientific methods and things that other people were saying. And then you have people like Lee Strobel who Lee Strobel was an atheist.
Right.
His wife became a follower of Christ. He spent the next, let's say, 2 years of his life trying to disprove it as an investigative reporter for the Chicago Tribune.
Right. That
And
was that movie, right? What's the name of that movie? I saw it. I can't
oh,
remember
that's
the name
he did make a movie of that.
of
It's a
it. Uh-huh.
Case for Christ.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah. No,
I haven't,
it's an excellent movie, like for real.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I haven't seen the movie, but I did read his book,
Yeah.
and
I mean, he was a staunch non-believer. Like he was going
right.
at it, and like you said, you kind of find that sometimes some people like they want to prove wrong. They do tons and tons of research, and then they come out and they just can't deny it. Like,
And that's the point I wanted to make. Anybody that's questioning their faith, or they don't believe, they don't see how other people believe, do the research.
for
Don't
yourself,
be,
yeah.
yeah, don't believe everything that you Google.
Right.
Google is not law,
Right.
because there's so much evidence outside of the Bible that corroborates what's in the Bible,
Right.
that shows that these events happen. And most scholars don't question that Jesus existed and that Jesus was crucified. If somebody wants to argue with me that Jesus wasn't real, then it's hard for me to have a conversation with them, because that's a fundamental truth that everybody understands, and the science and the history dictates that that's true.
Right.
Now, if you want to argue with me whether or not he was the Son of God and he was the living Christ, then
Right.
now we can have a conversation about it. But the fact of the matter is, the information is out there, and they just have to do the research for themselves.
Right. Right. And how long you been teaching this class?
It's probably been about a year and a half
Year and a
now
half. Okay.
that I've been
Okay.
doing, and as a PhD student, I have a lot of studying that I'm responsible for from a business side of it. But
Definitely.
I make it a point about every month to dive into a Christian book that helps me to explain this, and it all stemmed from about 4 years ago. One of my close friends told me that he didn't believe,
Right.
and that his disbelief wasn't because he didn't believe that it could be true. His disbelief was in the fact that anytime he had questions for somebody that was talking to him, they didn't have
They
the
didn't have any
answers.
answers, right?
Their answer was always, you got to talk to the pastor. Go ask some elder at the church.
Yeah.
And his mindset is, well, if I have to go talk to these experts, why do you believe if you don't have these answers? And I said, you know what? You're absolutely right about that. Let me go get these answers, not just for you, but for anybody else I come across.
Amen, amen. So again, we'll recap. You helping people with their taxes, trying to get on financial freedom, and they can reach you. You want me to give them your email address?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so it's thirdc11@gmail.com. That's THIRDC11@gmail.com. And also you can reach them at 469-249-8995. If you happen to be in that area, you can come in. I mean, we got all this technology. Y'all can do a consultation over the phone or Skype or anything.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, my consultations are, there is a wider range. We can do the tax consultation. If you have some more questions about apologetics or the Christian faith, we can do a consultation on that. Or even if you're just health and fitness,
Right.
If you have some questions about technology, I mean, we're here to answer all of those questions.
Yeah, because I know with that stint you did with that company, you learned a lot of technology, which is
definitely.
very, very, very helpful in today's society. Well, we really appreciate everything. You want to give a shout out to anybody before we wrap it up? You want to plug anything else?
Well, I do want to give a shout out to you for what you're doing, man, because there's a lot of knowledgeable people out there that some other individuals have a hard time having access to.
Right.
You're providing that access. Today it's me, tomorrow it's going to be somebody else, but for the most part, just take advantage of the things that you heard on the show today, and Roland, man, just keep doing what you're doing.
I will. I want to thank everyone for listening to this episode. Hopefully you acquire something that you can use or pass some of these useful tools on to someone else. Definitely tune in for future episodes. And until then, adios.